Israeli Minister of Intelligence Eli Cohen is new to a job that was intended to provide additional oversight outside the Prime Minister's office over the country's two main intelligence bodies. That's the Internal Security Agency, known as the Shin Bet or Shabak, and the Foreign Espionage Bureau, the Mossad. Now, Cohen joined the Likud last year after serving as economy minister for the Kulanu party in the last government. And I spoke with him earlier on issues ranging from the threat from Iran, Israel's West Bank annexation plans, and, of course, the coronavirus. Here's what he had to say to I-24 News. As Minister of Intelligence, you have some oversight over the Shin Bet, the Shabak. The use of their tracking tool in fighting coronavirus has been very controversial in Israel. Even the head of the Shabak, Nadav Argaman, was heard on tape saying it shouldn't be used. So why is the government continue to using it, and shouldn't it be replaced by some alternative?
First, right now we are developing an alternative which we call Magen 2, but we should be aware that when we are using the Shabak, we are helping to save hundreds of people right now, and on the other hand, it's help us to keep the market and the open here in Israel. Therefore, we are continuing to use the Shabak. We see that after we take control on the number of the people that have coronavirus, that in the peak was 700 people per day, and it's dropped down to 50 people per day. Now we approximately about 1,000 people per day. We put more restriction in regards to some hotels, some coffee shops, and in other places, and we're using the Shabak tools in order that we will go back to the number between 100 people to 200 people per day, that we will be able to take off all the restrictions.
Let me ask you, people voted for or accepted a unity government on the basis it would focus efficiently dealing with the coronavirus. But so far there's been a lot of questions, a lot of infighting in the government, a lot of feeling that it's gotten out of control. How do you answer those people who say, why isn't this unity government dealing more effectively with coronavirus?
Since we actually, not of the parties have more than 60 places in the Israeli parliament, which this is the number that you are able to have a right government or a left government. That's the reason why under the coronavirus problem, we decided to have a unity government, but we came from a different place of ideology, and there is a gap between us. We are trying to do our best. It's not going so well to overcome the gap in order to continue to focus in fighting the coronavirus, in order to drop down the unemployment rate right now and help to the business back to the scale as soon as possible.
Now, one of the issues, the other issues the government has been dealing with is the annexation or plan for the West Bank. Right now it's been delayed. Shouldn't maybe the government put annexation just aside for the moment and just focus on coronavirus? Why proceed now with annexation?
We will proceed with the annexation since we believe there is a window until the election in the United States to approve the annexation program. This is our land. Israel is the Jewish land. We are surrounded by 21 Arab countries, and what should be clear to all, that the Palestinians reject any program that they given to them in the last 3 decades. They said one time after time they said no and no and no, even to the program that bring Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert, and we believe that we should continue with the Trump plan, and we are going to the European countries to join to the Trump program and continue this with the Palestinian.
Now, you have tried to appeal, I believe personally, to the Gulf states. You spoke to a Saudi newspaper to try to get countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE to improve relations with Israel. even without having solved the Palestinian crisis. Do you really think that's a realistic possibility?
I think this is a realistic possibility since the threat on the area is coming from Iran. If the Saudi Arabian president, the king, and all the other presidents in our region are looking for their stability, they should be afraid from Iran, and that's for they should collaborate and cooperate with us, with Israel. This is the main threat. I don't believe that in the coming decade there will be any solution between us and the Palestinian, since the Palestinian till today reject any peace program that we put on the table, the European put on the table, the American put on the table. I don't think this is, will change in the coming decade. So the interest of those countries, the Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, is to have agreement and to normalize the relationship with Israel. This is good for the strength of our both countries, and this is also help for the economic relationship between us. We should be aware that the importance of oil and gas decrease, the importance of technology increase, and Israel also, it's a small country in numbers of population and size. We are one of the strongest countries in technology, and therefore cooperation between our countries, this is a mutual interest of both of us.
Now, since you mentioned Iran, we have seen reports that Iran is trying to now increase its nuclear capability. We've seen these reports of explosions at some of their facilities. The government just asked that the tenure of Yossi Cohen as the head of the Mossad be extended because this is a crucial period. Tell us what you can about why in the coming months or the coming year may be so crucial in terms of Israel defending itself against Iran.
Iran continue to lie to the world. That's one of the reasons Iran don't allow to the inspector of the IAEA to enter into Iran, since she violated the agreement that she signed with the European Union. In coming October, the US government will go to the UN to continue the embargo on Iran and continue the sanction. Iran is the #1 finance terror worldwide. She finances Hezbollah, she finances Hamas, she finances the militias in Yemen, in Syria, in all other places. And if we care about the world peace, we should not allow to Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Israel will not allow to Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Israel is the only country worldwide that another country calling for her destruction. A country that calling for destruction for another company cannot be a member in the UN. And Britain, Germany, France should understand that only with massive pressure on Iran, Iran will change her path. The Iranian people is a good people, but the leaders are all the time interfere in this neighborhood and in other countries in order to threaten Israel. They should ask the Britain, the German, everyone, what Iran is looking for in Syria. She built in Syria hospital. She built in Syria shopping mall. They know what she exactly looking for in Syria. Why she finance Hezbollah in Lebanon? Why she finance the Islamic Jihad in Gaza? In all the places where Iran involved, the people suffer. The people in Gaza suffer because of the Iranian. The people in Lebanon right now have a crisis, economic crisis, because of the Hezbollah and the Iranian who finance there. Also in Syria. And this is a worldwide interest to stop Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Now, you mentioned earlier there is going to be an American election in November. The candidate leading in the polls, Joe Biden, was the vice president of the administration that signed that nuclear agreement with Iran. There are people in the Democratic Party elsewhere in America that say maybe maybe we'll go back to the nuclear agreement. You now have a forum, Minister Cohen, to speak to the American public and American officials. What do you want to tell them, to those people who say, well, maybe we should be going back to the nuclear agreement with Iran if there's a change in November?
Definitely not. If they will go back to the nuclear agreement that's signed after in the Obama regime, this is something that will bring Iran closer to a nuclear weapon. This is something we should not allow that will happen. And America, the United States, is the closest and strongest allies for Israel. Israel is a small country. Israel is the only Jewish country. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And therefore, there are another 21 Arab countries in our region. And I'm calling also to the American, they will decide who will be their president. Of course, from my point of view, we are all the time looking the president that will be as much as pro-Israel as we can, from my point of view. But the American, they will choose who will be their president. But definitely, I would like to thank the President Trump, that thanks to his pressure, the Iranian actually move away, that it will take more time to have a nuclear weapon. The sanction actually reduce the money that going to terror in this region and worldwide. Therefore, I'm calling to the European country to join in the coming October in the UN to the American in the thing that they will not to continue the embargo on Iran. Only pressure, like what happened in 2003 and 2015, will bring the Iranian to the table and actually will stop their objection to get a nuclear weapon.
Minister of Intelligence Eli Cohen, thank you for joining us on I-24 News.
Thank you very much.